Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I was just watching a video about how millions of Americans might have long COVID despite never having a symptom from actively having COVID. I want to talk about my own experiences with long COVID and what I suspect a lot of these long COVID cases might involve. So some of the number one symptoms of long COVID were brain fog and difficulty breathing. I didn't see my particular symptom among the top ones. I had a loss of appetite, but I think I understand why I had long COVID for, I want to say, about a month and a half. I made some mistakes that made the long COVID last a lot longer than it might have. I suspect a lot of it was psychological. I kept worrying about not having an appetite, and I kept musing about the past, right? When I used to be able to eat whatever, when my schedule used to look like this. As soon as I made peace with the idea that maybe my appetite might not be returning and to enjoy this new life, I recovered. And then I got upset that I recovered. And it makes me wonder how much of this, right? If you worry about whether or not tomorrow you're going to have brain fog, chances are you are, right? Because it's psychological whether or not you feel that way, right? Not to say every case of long COVID is like that, but I suspect that was the situation. Now, I had another time in my life where I felt almost as sick as I did last month. I was working on my PhD, and I ate a lot of fish out of Lake Ontario and got myself a mercury toxic. And my immune system went to shit after that. And I suspect mercury toxicity, especially from all the injections that we're using to fight this problem, might be at the root of some of this so-called long COVID. Now, what's really interesting is that I recently took on some art projects where I worked on some heavy metals, and I took after I finished it, I took a lot of detoxifying chelating agents, and I suspect I chelated other stuff out of my body as well. After all, we're all exposed to mercury in our diets. I have a harder time clearing mercury out of my system than the general public. I've taken tests for that because I have autism, so I've taken tests. It's interesting, if you just take a blood test for mercury, if you're high in mercury, you're going to show low because you're not excreting it in your blood. Or I think it might have been a urine test as well. What you need to do is take a test before and then take another test after taking the chelating agents. And mine was off the charts, if I remember correctly. So I suspect it's a combination of general toxicity, maybe with heavy metals, and the idea that you think of yourself as ill, and then you continue your symptoms. So I would recommend making peace with whatever symptom. If it's foggy brain, maybe use this as an opportunity to do something that being foggy brain would allow you to do, right? If there's something tedious that normally your brain would get bored of, right? Do those things now and make peace with the idea that's how you feel. If it does stay that way, at least you've made peace with it, but chances are it might do some wonders as well, right? Just my own experience. Actually, the loss of appetite is kind of interesting. This past week, I lost my appetite again. What had happened was I had gone to a local shopping mall to look for my future partner in life, and I sat down in the food court, and I got disgusted at how a lot of Americans vacuum their food. It was disgusting. I'll let you try it. If you need to eat less or eat slower, go to the food court and watch people eat. I think you'll quickly snap out of that disgusting habit. What I like to do is, this is a Canon SX740 camera. It zooms in 40x. So I'll sit like a good 50 feet from somebody so they don't realize I'm doing this. And I'll zoom in the camera at their mouth and record them. I got a couple videos. I'm not going to upload them, but I'll let you do it. I got a couple videos of people vacuuming food that I watched to remind myself how I shouldn't do that. unfortunately, it makes me completely lose my appetite. Not just not wanting to eat fast, but not wanting to eat at all sometimes. So it's kind of interesting. But ever since my experience with COVID and getting a lot of stuff done, now I actually want to go back to that. So it's all a matter of perspective, really. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.